This is it, everyone. We're at the finish line. The Bachelor finale airs next Monday as a typical 2-hour episode, followed by an hour-long After the Final Rose, where we're going to learn what's really been going on behind the scenes, who Matt James is with now, if anyone at all, and of course, who the next Bachelorette will be. And with this finale preview, I think we have a solid foundation to speculate on who's going to be Matt's final pick, and who's going to leave the show heartbroken, and how. So let's take a look at the final preview for the season, and for one last time, please, no posting blatant spoilers in the comment section below. Sleuthing, however, is encouraged. And I'll leave a link to the full preview in the description.
I'm about to make one of the most important decisions in my life. To find love, to find a wife, to leave this thing engaged.
Rachael, I'm Patty.
Nice to meet you.
And it's time to meet the family, as Matt's about to make one of the biggest decisions of his life. And I also want to point out right here, these flowers, they're the same flowers that we saw last week in the preview footage here. It's extremely common for the final two contestants on both The Bachelor and Bachelorette to bring the lead's mom flowers. That's what's happening here with Rachael, and also here with Michelle. Which means, last week, as we predicted, they gave us final two footage thrown in with the Fantasy Suite preview. Though with how the season has been presented, especially in the last few episodes, we didn't really need a shot of Rachael and some flowers to figure out she was going to make it to the finale.
My brother and my mom, they know me better than anybody. She doesn't want me to make the same mistake that my dad made.
Every time I see him, my heart's racing. I really do picture this future with him.
So if you're not familiar with how this episode works, typically each contestant gets a sit down with the lead's family, this time it's Matt's mom and brother, and then they also get a separate one-on-one date to close off the season. And that's the last time they're supposed to see each other before the final rose ceremony. Now, there are a few exceptions to this, like when Sean Lowe rushed to his eventual final picks room late at night before the final day to go over important life decisions before he proposed. By the way, that happened off camera. Or they might see each other again if something very atypical happens, like the lead or one of the contestants wanting to break things off early, which is something we might be seeing next episode, but let's continue.
I've been looking for this type of love for such a long time.
Thank you so much.
Make me cry.
Love is a wonderful thing.
And here is Michelle's day. She'll be meeting Matt's mom, but also going on a date rappelling down this building. And I'm working on a bit of a theory about a very common edit for the finale and these Meet the Family dates that seems to fit in with this segment. I don't have a solid name for it, but it goes like this. Whoever has the easiest edit with the parents in the finale is often the person who doesn't win. Or rather, the person who doesn't end up with the lead. With Hannah Brown, Tyler had the easier Meet the Parents segment in the finale, and she picked Jed.
I know my dad really liked Tyler and was really proud that I had someone so great like Tyler that loved me.
With Peter Weber, his mom Barb was basically ready to obliterate him if he didn't pick Hannah Ann.
Don't let her go. Don't let her go. Bring her home. Bring her home to us.
And I guess he did pick her, but he dumped her from Madison at the After the Final Rose, which was also all fake because really he wanted to be with Kelly. Now, of course, Tayshia's season was different, so it's still a working theory, but when I was little boy Bachelor fan take, I used to watch wrestling, and I remember they would often do the same thing. Have a big championship match, build up a guy as the likely winner, and then have the other guy win so as to shock and entertain the audience. In this section here, things seem to be going really well with Michelle, but that might be edited that way so as to overcompensate for the fact that it seems like a lock that Matt's going to pick Rachael.
Hearing everything that my mom had been through just takes me back to a very dark place.
So once again, they're using this shot to amp up the emotion in the previews, even though we know it's from Matt's conversation with his dad as we saw that last episode. But mostly, I'm pausing to point out this little shot, which is going to feed into my speculation for how next episode goes down. So let's continue on.
I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
Do you know if you can do this anymore?
To be honest with you, I don't know, Chris.
And yet again, we have this section of the preview that's been teased for what feels like forever. We originally speculated it was Matt sending someone home, then last week we added that it could have been Matt's reaction to his father's arrival, and now again we're going to pedal back to that original theory that this is the result of a breakup. But to complete that picture, we need to watch the rest of the preview.
Everything that I thought I was working towards is starting to crumble.
Tell me where you're at.
Alright, right here is a part of this whole whirlwind, with Matt upset and walking around not sure if he can continue. Here's a part I want to note down. Mostly what Michelle's wearing. We're gonna double back to that in a second. It's an outfit we've seen before in the previews, and we'll see it again right here ahead.
You didn't even want to see me today. I feel pretty in the dark right now.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
And this is where the preview ends, with Matt walking off and both Michelle and Rachael upset. But I think there are key differences in how each of these ladies are reacting to the situation that forms a narrative on what's going to go down. So, let's talk speculation for the finale and what this whole Matt being upset business is about. Now, the natural assumption here, and the assumption I believe is correct, is that Matt is breaking up with someone in this moment, then we get that post-breakup mega cry. It's an extremely common picture that we've seen before in many seasons. Sometimes it happens at the final 2, sometimes final 3 or 4, or even final 6. But we have to assume this is about a breakup, as there's really no evidence to suggest anything else. Sure, it's possible something unrelated to his final 2 comes out of left field and causes Matt to get upset, but we can't predict anything like that. So, we're going to assume that this is the most likely of scenarios, Matt breaking up with one of his final 2, or being broken up with. And my theory is the former. Matt has just ended his relationship with one of the final 2. And it probably won't surprise you to hear me say that I think that person is Michelle. So let's put aside edits up until this point and our view on who Matt seems to be more into, and just look at this last bit of preview footage. Starting with here. Michelle saying, "Tell me where you're at," and being very visibly upset. Now her outfit here matches this shot with her crying that we've seen here and there in the previews all season, and also matches this shot with Michelle crying on the floor. And this white sweater is not what Michelle's wearing on her rappelling date, nor what she's wearing when she meets Matt's mom. It's also, in all likelihood, not what she's wearing at the romantic evening portion of her final date with Matt, which is often a fancier outfit. So this has to be from a separate time than all of those other events. And as we talked about before, outside of the meet the family moment and the final date, the lead and the last 2 women won't see each other until the final rose ceremony. That is unless something very atypical happens, something like a breakup. And perhaps here, Matt's made his decision, and he decides he wants to break up with Michelle immediately and not string her along until the final rose. Not to mention, another promo dropped for the After the Final Rose, and, well, check it out.
I don't know if I'm ready to be engaged.
And host Emmanuelle Acho hosts a shocking After the Final Rose with a jaw-dropping announcement.
Get ready for a curveball, Bachelor Nation.
Now, once you get past Emmanuelle Acho saying there's going to be some sort of curveball, maybe Bachelorette, take a look at this shot of Michelle. There is no way this is the face of someone happily engaged or in a relationship with Matt. Which leaves Rachael. What about Rachael? What's going on with her saying he won't even see me?
You didn't even want to see me today. I feel pretty in the dark right now.
Could this mean there's a possibility she's being broken up with as well, or instead of Michelle? Well, let's walk through what she's saying. Matt won't see her, and she's in the dark. We also have this bit of footage right here with Rachael sitting in a hotel room, seemingly waiting for Matt or reacting to something that's happened. And this shot is from the same time as her saying Matt won't see her, as her outfit here matches her outfit from this shot. So, we know some event happens, Rachael is waiting in her room for Matt, and she's in the dark. We also know that this must happen after her meet the family with Matt's mom and brother, as she's happily talking with Matt's mom here, and she's wearing a completely different outfit. So my question is, how could Rachael know that Matt won't see her? The only way I can think of, apart from a producer telling her, is if she had something scheduled with Matt that gets cancelled. Now we know it's not her day meeting with Matt's mom, so the only other scheduled event where Matt could be coming to see her is her final date. So here's what I'm thinking. We start with the meet the parents. Both these meetings typically happen on separate days from the final dates with Matt and are typically beforehand. Once that is done, the next day is the first final date for the season, and that is going to be with Michelle. They go rappelling, and however it works out, either before they reach the evening portion of their date or at some point after, Matt decides to end things, and it happens here. Of course, like we've seen with most any season, Matt gets emotional, has that post-breakup mega cry, and he wonders if he can even move forward. Or so this bit of preview footage would have us believe. The next morning, he decides he can't show up for his date with Rachael, he's just not ready. Rachael is then left wondering what's going on, why won't Matt see me, I'm in the dark. But I figure Matt will simply be doing this out of not wanting to ruin their time together with his emotional state. So, once Matt is ready, they do have their final date, and Matt picks Rachael, the end. That is, until the after the final rose, where despite everything that happens on the show, the real tea is going to be spilt. Matt and Rachael will be able to have their say about all the controversy that's gone on outside the show, and we'll see if Matt's still with his pick, if they're engaged, if Matt's alone, if Matt's interested in trying things again with one of the other women, and of course, whatever the heck that curveball is.
Get ready for a curveball, Bachelor Nation.
And that's it for this last preview breakdown for Matt's season. I'll be looking forward to seeing how everything plays out, especially the after the final rose, and with the show being 3 hours long, I may decide to cover the finale in 2 parts. One for the 2-hour portion of the show, and the next day covering the 1 hour after the final rose. Of course, once the season's done, there's still going to be a lot to talk about, and a lot of content coming out as we gear up for the next season of The Bachelorette. So, until next time, Bachelor Fan Take, out.
You didn't even want to see me today. I feel pretty in the dark right now.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.